the studio in a different version since '96, when my wife Holly and I bought this house. So my good friend Kurt Story, who had engineered a bunch of records of mine, my first record, A Show of Hands, he's the reason I actually came to Nashville to visit. He designed it. He and I came up together with ideas, and my main thing is I wanted to be able to do everything in this room, from writing to mastering. And it's a very good retrospective or something of my whole life, not even just the 30 years I've been in this room, but stuff from my childhood, and I'm sure stuff that'll be here someone will have to go through long after I'm gone. Sorry, kids. I'm very lucky to have been born to my 4 older brothers and the 2 parents. And so they got me playing right away. I first played on a little toy Mickey Mouse guitar. Then I used one of Reggie's extra guitars to learn to play parts. And my first gigs were playing an electric guitar as the bass player. But the first bass that my parents could find that were small enough for me is that Univox. It's light, and right now it's fretless, because after I got the Alembic and I heard Jaco Pastorius, I had to take the frets out of one of my basses. And I did a lot of gigs on that. Started to learn how to use my thumb, how to really move an audience with the low end. I learned on that Univox. Because we were young and we were good, we got attention. And so our parents first started getting us gigs at the Army base or the Air Force base and things like that. But then we started opening big concerts for the Temptations, for War, and eventually Curtis Mayfield's Superfly tour, where we got to be the opening band on the West Coast. We were living in Sacramento, California at the time. And we met a lot of people. Curtis Mayfield's people actually brought us in the studio. They were going to discover the Wooten brothers. I thank my family and my parents for giving me that opportunity. And I learned a lot. And for the most part, that's really all I've ever done is be a bass player in a band. I have lots of heroes when it comes to the bass. I could mention a lot: Chuck Rainey, Ron Carter, Anthony Jackson, Jaco Pastorius, Willie Weeks, of course, Larry Graham for the thumb. Part of my, I don't know what the word is, infatuation? I don't know what it is with Stanley. One is that I got to meet him when I was 9. My brothers took me with them to go see Return to Forever. After the concert, we just didn't leave the theater. They take us to the dressing room, and Stanley, Lenny White, Al Di Meola, and Chick Corea are down there, and we just kind of hang out. But I had asked him for a broken string or something that I could have, and he got up out of his seat, and it was sort of like that little kid Coca-Cola commercial. You're probably too young to remember the Coca-Cola commercial with the little kid. Yeah, you don't know what I'm talking about. You're like a baby. Just seeing your idol stand up and they tower above you. It's like, wow,
Wow, thanks, Joe.
And Stanley did that, and he walked around the dressing room looking for something to give me. He didn't have anything. And so they had like this booklet with bios and photos and stuff. Stanley took my booklet, wrote an address on there and said, send me a letter here and I'll send you something. And I did, and he did. And that probably solidified that he was my idol, I think it was 1977. I just remember I was in the 7th grade. And there was a great store, 45 minutes away or so in Virginia Beach called Audio, Light, and Musical. And we went in there one day, and in this almost like glass case, sitting on a purple pillow or something, in a beautiful stand, was that Alembic bass was sitting there. And I'm like, it was like a mouth with water. And I just knew that was what Stanley Clarke played. Some kind of way, I'm sure it was Reggie, talked my parents into getting it for me. And they got it for me. Everything's expensive when you're poor. Some kind of way my parents got it. Now this is what's called a Series 1 Alembic. They are huge and heavy. So thinking of a 12-year-old holding this big bass. Yeah, it's heavy. I still, and playing it, hitting a low F, takes my shoulder out of socket.
Yeah.
So, I have to do it that way, still. But I wanted to be like Stanley. I still want to be like Stanley. I'm too short, everything. But I was a full-fledged adult when I realized what Stanley was playing was a whole lot smaller than what I had. Whenever I have a bass player over the house, You know, and if I ever get this bass out, we all have to play the same thing. We all go. That's the bass Stanley Clarke played on his probably most famous song, School Days. That's the actual bass he played. It has a SC inlaid in the bottom below the bridge, and he actually signed it for me on the back of the headstock. That's the most magical bass I think I have. All that stuff that we were listening to when he first hit the scene was played on that bass, and it's right there. I couldn't believe it. My friend Dave Welsh, longtime friend of mine, called me on the phone and said, "Hey, Stanley's selling gear." And I said to Dave, "No, he's not." But Dave was right, he was. I called Stanley and I made some small talk for it. "Hey man, how you doing?" I didn't want to, "What are you selling?" You know, I couldn't go straight there, but finally I said, "What are you selling?" And he said, "Well, I've got the Alembic I played School Days on." And I was like, whoa. I just knew I had to have it. I had to have it. And then I found out he was selling an upright bass. And he said, "But it's a 5/8 size, which is a small size." This is exactly what I want. I don't know if I've ever told this story on mine. Because people think Stanley gave this bass to me, and he kind of did, but he didn't. He was selling this stuff, and I said, "I really need an upright." He said it's from the 1700s, you know? And I found out what he was selling it for, and it was way out of my range. So I went to my wife, went to Holly, I said, "Holly, you know," and I just puppy dog tears and told her about the two basses. Her answer, she said, "You have to have those basses." I was like, I married the right person. You're right, honey. I have to have these basses. I do. Yeah, and thanks to my wife, I have two of his basses. Good Time Country Band, wow. You did your homework. That brings me back. A whole adventure had happened between getting the Alembic in '77 and Busch Gardens that started for me in '81. It went from '81 to '87, on and off. I worked there. My brothers and I worked at Busch Gardens in Williamsburg, Virginia. Some of the memories there that happened through there aren't good ones. Basically, we got a bad record deal. Every bad thing has a silver lining. When the brothers went into the record deal with Arista, I was playing the Alembic. The producer said, "Well, I don't like Alembics." He didn't even hear it. "I don't like Alembics." And there was a guy in the studio with us brothers, a guitar player named Ira Siegel. Great guitar, great musician. He said, "I have some friends who make basses. Do you want me to call them?" I said, "Yeah." Fodera basses are made by Vinny Fodera and Joey Laricella. Joey shows up at the studio with two basses. So remember, I'm playing this tank, way too big for me. I never grew after 7th grade, probably. I'm still the same height. And then I feel this bass that just felt like me. I don't even know if I ever plugged it in, but I fell in love with it right then. So I didn't have any money. We were supposed to have money from the record deal. We never got any. But Joey says, "Keep the bass. Get me the money when you have it." And I have to say it the way it is. Who's gonna give, and this will offend some people, but it's the truth, who would give a young black kid in '81 a bass, a Fodera bass? Now, they didn't have the name that they have now, but same quality. A Fodera bass and say, "Send me the money when you get it." And it happened to be bass number 37. Now, I'm born on the 11th, September 11th. The other bass he brought was an 11. The 11s are all over my life. I wanted to take number 11, but this Alembic has zebra wood on the front. The number 11 looks just like it. It had zebra wood. For some reason, I wanted a different look. So I chose the one that was maple, like that. And that's the one I still have. It's in the museum at the moment. But that bass became me. Third ever bass. Yeah. Wow. So in a sense, I've played 3 basses in my life. The Univox, the Alembic, and the Fodera. And all the Foderas that I play are all the same. EMG pickups, PJ style, in the same place. The EQ has changed, but the make hasn't really. I want that same feel. I don't know cars, Maserati, Ferrari, whatever. They are that when it comes to basses. And I own other basses, you can see. And I'll use them for different sounds in the studio and things like that. But when I want to feel like me and sound like me, it's a Fodera Monarch bass with PJ EMG pickups. The only thing I've changed on the bass is the look. And that was when I came up with the idea of having a bass look like a yin yang symbol somehow. And I thought maybe they would inlay a yin yang somewhere, but it was Vinny, who's a total artist. Vinny drew that picture of Curly from the Three Stooges up there. He drew that. And that's a simple drawing. He's the one that came up with the actual 2 pieces of wood. It's not painted. 2 pieces of wood, and he chose ebony. And on my first bass, it was holly. This one. This is the first yin yang bass, right here, the very first one. And I needed a fretless at the time, so he made it fretless. As I say, it's the only design. No, there's been others. I have a bow bass. I have what I call a trick bass. I have a light up bass. When I started getting crazy, they were the guys that would, try ideas for me. But for the most part, ideas are built around this. Well, in many cases, if I just want to sound like me, I'm playing this bass. And I've been playing this one probably the last 15 years or so. This is my second fretted yin yang. The way I typically get my sound. First is the Fodera bass with P pickups and a J pickup. This bass has a lot of EQ in it. It has 2 batteries, 18 volts, 2 9-volt batteries. So I have like electronics, I have boost. I have a volume knob here, and then I have an overall tone. That means I have tone for the bass even if the preamp is not on. But I rarely run it without the preamp on. So I have an on and off switch, turn it on, you can hear the bass, right? I usually run it active so that the preamp is in. And then this is not active. That switch makes it passive. This other switch, I don't really know what it does. I just leave that button down. It's more bottom end. With it on, it's brighter. Then I have 3 bands of EQ. I have lows, mids, and highs. Oh, and this is a pan knob. So if I turn that knob all the way up, it's all the way this pickup. All the way the other way, it's all the way this pickup, or right in the middle. So depending on what I'm playing will determine where that is. If I'm gonna play a melody, I'll turn it more back to this pickup, so it's brighter. If I'm playing bass lines, I turn it up a little to get more bottom instead of this. I'll use that to play some melodies and things. Then I can turn it really quickly here to get more bottom end. And then where I place my hands here, more bottom end up here. It gets brighter back there. So between my hands and the EQ, and I know it so well that I can make a maneuver very quickly to get the tone I need for the particular part of the song that I'm playing. So if I'm gonna be playing harmonics, I'm gonna turn this to go back to this pickup, watch. So when I'm playing solo bass, meaning no other instruments, I'm going back to mostly this pickup, because I don't want, that's not bad, but now you hear the chord. But when I'm playing bass parts where I want it to be a heavier sound, fat, especially if I'm recording for someone else just to be a bass player, I use that blue bass. You can see the headstock over there, bluish green. That's also a Fodera bass, but it's more of a Fender style. They call it an N.Y.C bass. It doesn't have the Fodera shape, and it has a different sound. But I have that bass set up with heavy gauge strings, heavy for me, and higher action. To me, with higher action and heavier gauge strings, bass sounds better. I want to be comfortable so I can make the best music. So I use lighter strings and lower action. That bass has heavier strings and heavier action. This is hard to play. The story behind that bass is when I turned 40, I run music camps. I was turning 40 during the camp, and I had, some of my heroes. I had Will Lee there, Chuck Rainey, I had Stanley Clarke at that camp. And a student came up and said, I want to give you this P-Bass for your birthday. I don't know anything about Fender, but I know that bass probably costs a lot, or is worth a lot. Probably didn't cost a lot when you bought it, but probably worth a lot. I don't need another bass. I did everything to not take this bass, but he really wanted me to have it. So I said, okay. And it's the first Fender bass I've ever had. Well, it's literally sat in the closet for 10 years or so. I got called by one of my all-time favorite singers, a woman named N.Y.C. I got called by a guy who was producing a song, and he wanted me and one of my favorite drummers, J.D. Blair. I couldn't make the live session, so he said, just do it at your house. Perfect. I listened to the song. I said, I want to try this P-Bass. Let me get this P-Bass out. Man, I plugged that P-Bass into the board, and I started playing along, and it was like my hair stood up on my body. It brought me right back to all that music I grew up hearing. I had no idea that 99% of all that stuff was played on a P or a J, Fender. It's got a sound. Once the producer heard it, he loved it, but he said, can you do the same thing on upright bass? So the P-Bass version is not on the record, but it came out well. Hopefully he got what he wanted, and I get to say that I'm on a record by N.Y.C. When you talk about the coolest bass I own is this one. It's very delicate. Because that and the Ivy, this is what I call the dragon bass. I just think it's very, very cool, real ivory teeth. So I don't even know if you're even allowed to use ivory anymore. Probably couldn't travel out of the country with it. But very delicate, real sword, but it's a man slaying a dragon. He knows I like dragons. There's dragons all over this place. And it's 8 strings. I'm a Bruce Lee fan, and he was born the year of the dragon, and so was I, so. Figure that's the closest I'll ever get to Bruce Lee. And the Bill Conklin. Bill Conklin, sadly he passed away. He made some great basses. He was known for making 7-string basses and things like that. But he made this one for me, and I'm honored to have it. So that is almost like the P-Bass, a gift. I was on tour, and a guy showed up with this thing, and he said, I want you to have this. And it was just so crazy and genius at the same time. I mean, it sounds horrible. But if you look at how this guy made it, he cut a bass drum in half for the body. The legs are tripod, like camera tripod legs. He made a bridge. He bought a secondhand Fender type neck. You'll see like cabinet drawer hinges holding things together. And he just made this thing in such a cool way. I just thought, I'll never play it, but this would be a cool thing to have. And it's one of the first things people mention and see when they come into the studio. Yeah. Bass is a role that music plays. Bass is really not an instrument. We call it the bass, and I believe it's spelled wrong. It should be B-A-S-E. because it's the foundation of everything. But bass is a role that music needs to feel complete, in the same way this house needs a solid foundation. It can exist without it, but it won't be as complete. You can play bass on a tuba, you can play bass keyboard, you can play bass singing. It's a role. And so if I'm a bass instrument player, then I might have one bass that I can play. But I want to be a bassist, meaning someone who can fill that role. So I'm most comfortable on that bass. You might want upright. You might want keyboard bass. You might want tuba. I just want to be as complete as a bassist as possible, not just complete as a bass guitarist, if that makes any sense.